This is the Final Word Daily, the T20 World Cup Daily to be precise. It's day 6 of the Super 12s. Work that out. Jeff Lemon and Adam Collins with the show. I'm in Melbourne where it's blowing a gale. Adam is in London and he's going to tell us all about Australia and Sri Lanka, but he only has 30 seconds to do it. That's the catch. Go.
In the end, Australia have done it easily, winning by 7 wickets with 3 overs to spare, which belies the extent to which Sri Lanka got off to a flyer, but they were held up in their tracks by Adam Zampa, who took 2 for 12 off 4 overs and completely changed the game. Some sharp work from Mitchell Starc as well. They only made it to 154 by the end of their overs. Australia were aided by a fantastic power play, making 63. Finch got 37. Warner back to form with 65 and sealed by Marcus Stoinis 3 overs early, 16 not out. Smith there at the end as well. They're second in the group after 2 games.
Yeah, and a much more convincing outing as far as the chase went. This didn't look like a nervous Australian side. They did get the benefit of that drop catch that David Warner received, but he's back in the runs. I think what was really telling, though, was Zampa's intervention and also how well Mitchell Starc bowled. He only bowled 1 over off the top, but was already swinging the ball and quite appreciably swinging it as well. Came back in the 11th over and was still swinging the ball. Got that in-swinging Yorker that bowled Kursal Pereira, and that really helped turn things around because, Sri Lanka were up and running very briskly at that stage and looking set for a much better target.
Yeah, I think when Zampa entered the attack in the 8th over, they were 63 for 1, and I think during his time at the crease, so the 7 overs he was in the attack, the 4 he was bowling and the 3 that he wasn't, they took 4 for 30 something, so it gives you a feel for just the extent to which he was able to change the game. Bowled 12 dot balls, just 4 runs from his first over, but always attacking the stumps. I mean, he nearly had a leg before decision go his way with his 4th ball, I think it was, and then was able to keep attacking the stumps, keep making players make bad decisions, and also doing them in flight. Asalanka was notably out, having miscued, having not quite picked up the flight of Zampa and not picking the wrong end. So he's going from strength to strength. Starc felt like he was putting in a more potent effort tonight, well supported by Hazlewood and Cummins at different times. What I would say is that 51 was taken from Australia's 5th bowler, so looking at areas to improve. It's always going to be a calculated risk having Maxwell and Stoinis be your 5th bowler. And Sri Lanka, Jeff, looked to have a plan to immediately go after Maxwell, taking, I think it was 16 runs from his first over. Stoinis got taken apart at the very end of his 3 over spell, going for about 34, I think it was. So between the pair of them, 51 from 4, that is one consideration as we work through the tournament. If Sri Lanka can do that, then England will know that's exactly what they're going to try and do when they play on Saturday.
Asalanka has been batting in God mode for the last couple of matches that he's had. The way that he came out today, he got the short ball from Cummins, pulled it for 4 immediately. Yeah. That ended up being called a no ball, so he got a free hit that was a low full toss aiming for the Yorker. He just punched that over mid-off down the ground, looked tremendous in doing so, and then went after Maxwell. As you mentioned, and tactically, why wouldn't you with a spinner bowling in the power play? But it stood out to me that Australia still only have that one frontline spin option. When your leg spinner ends up returning 2 for 12 from 4 overs, you can see that there's a bit of assistance out there. Zampa had it on a string. He was bowling beautifully, depending on whether it was right or left-handers. He was bowling more wrong-uns to the left-handers, but it wasn't just doing them in flight. He was doing them off the pitch as well. He was turning the ball away from the edge of the bat repeatedly and beating shots, having players sort of lean out, almost getting stumpings, and then switching it around to the leg break to turn away from the edge of the bat for the right-handers, but also using the wrong end a bit to turn in as well. Nobody could really pick what he was doing out there during his spell today, but it does make you think, maybe another spinner would have been handy. There wasn't really a weak link in the frontline bowlers, though. I mean, Hazlewood was terrific again, went for 26, I think, from 4 overs. Cummins slightly more expensive, but that was basically down to that over where he had the no ball on the 4, and he still picked up a couple of wickets along the way as well. So it's not like there's an obvious candidate to leave out, but there's still something about the balance of the side with, playing only one specialist spinner in these conditions seems like it's a very Australian way of doing things.
Yeah, that's right. But again, it's hard, isn't it? You see the way that Cummins got that first wicket in the Asalanka. He hit a glorious boundary the ball before. I think it was through extra cover. And then next ball, pace off from Cummins. He did him above the shoulders, really. And it was the same with Shanaka, the captain, in the death overs. I think he got hit for a 4, and next ball was able to induce the false stroke by taking pace off. So Cummins isn't just... I suppose the thing with Cummins is he's played a lot of IPL these days. He's turned himself into quite a savvy 20-over bowler. The same can be said for Zampa. Let's remember that Zampa was Australia's lead spinner in this competition 5.5 years ago. So these guys have been building towards this as a T20 group. So it does stand to reason why they're getting first opportunity. And yeah, I'm not quite sure how they'll shuffle it. At some point, it will require playing one fewer batsman. But who would it be? I mean, Matthew Wade's at number 7. He's the wicket keeper. Yeah, Maxwell missed out today. Hit a lovely reverse sweep and was out 2 balls later, caught it deep mid-wicket. Shane Watson made a good point on commentary that Sri Lanka went with 3 out on the offside to neutralise the reverse, and then Maxwell went to the leg side, which I suppose is the more conventional thing to do for a player of his prodigious talent, but he wasn't quite as committed to the stroke as he would have been had he been in reverse, and was caught right on the boundary line, on the short boundary side as well. It's rare to say that Maxwell wouldn't quite go the full journey, but not as though he's going to be left out of the team. Smith as the glue. You need him as anchor. That was perfectly positioned for him when they needed 60 off 60. They said it on the commentary that it is the ideal situation for Stephen Smith, as it was, and Marcus Stoinis has put the cream on the cake in both games so far today. I was really impressed by the fact that in the 17th over, Australia had, I think it was 24 balls to make 29 runs or something like that, and they got it back to 15 off the last 3 overs. They could have cruised, or the last 4 overs, 15 off 24, but instead Stoinis was able to evaluate the situation and realise that net run rate doesn't respect whether you win the game by 7 wickets or 5 wickets. The sensible thing to do there was put the foot down, get the 3 over advantage via net run rate, and he's the sort of player that can do that, muscling balls down the ground, a huge 6 to finish it off down, or not to finish it off, in the last, what became the last over, into the crowd at long on, and then swatting another one down the ground to extra cover, his 3rd boundary in that region. So Stoinis seems to be really finding his own as the finisher. So Jeff, if they do get to the stage of the competition where they want to change the balance, I'm not quite sure how they do it right now, which is a good problem to have.
Well, what you saw today, I think, was that the tactical approach became more clear, that Maxwell didn't bat by batting position, he batted by point of the innings. So they took the Royal Challengers Bangalore handbook, and so he came in the 7th over because there was an opportunity there for him to come in after the power play and hit spin. And the idea was try to finish it off more quickly, be more ruthless, get that net run rate boost, which may be absolutely vital in, given how competitive that group is going to be. So that was the tactic, and then given that didn't work, they took it a little bit more easy for a while. Steve Smith, 26 at a runner ball, but Warner still had the rate up. He was still going at a sort of 150-ish strike rate, which let Smith go at 100. And when Warner was out, like you said, Stoinis came in and made sure the rate was maintained. So they've got that bit of the boost. That seemed tactically deliberate to make sure that wickets weren't necessarily that important in making sure they ran that down in fast time. But in terms of how you remodel it, like if something gives in terms of specialist bowlers, that doesn't change your 5th bowler problem. If you bring in, if Ashton Agar comes in for one of the 3 fast bowlers, put it that way, that's still going to leave a 5th bowler issue. The only way that it doesn't is if Agar bats 7, then you need to put your wicketkeeper in the top 6 somewhere, and somebody gives away.
Yeah, and you wouldn't be changing the opening partnership after tonight, the experienced duo of Warner and Finch. We kind of brushed over Finch's 37. Gee, he looked good. He broke the back of that chase inside the power play. The biggest power play of the comp so far, 63 for none. Yeah, I mentioned Warner getting dropped in the summary by Pereira. I mean, ballooning off the glove, it's one of the most straightforward chances you'll ever see. It was a brain explosion from Pereira. As Nick Friend, our colleague, pointed out on Twitter, it's in the category of drop catches where the umpire's finger was was already raised just to acknowledge the fact that it kissed glove before the ball had a chance to reach Pereira's gloves and ultimately slip through them. So, yes, that might have changed the complexion of the chase, but Finch was going great guns at one stage, slaying a boundary down the ground and then hitting an uppercut perfectly to the short boundary in consecutive balls. So he looks like he's in a bit of form, having not played a lot of cricket this year due to injury and surgery. And in the case of Warner, after getting that opportunity, especially when Finch got out, I reckon, Jeff, he took ownership for the chase. Some of those pull shots were hit so well. That slam drive down the ground, which nearly took out the bowler, I can't remember who it was, but they cut to a shot of Glenn Maxwell, who was like grimacing, thinking, oh, gee, that could have easily hit the bowler in the head. It was hit so hard. And look, that's Warner at his best. He's taken a while to find form over the last couple of months, but he seems to have struck it at just the right time. He turned 35 yesterday, I think, so this will almost certainly be his last World Cup. Well, he'll probably play next year as well, but he's in his last stretch of his career. I was going to say his last World Cup in T20s.
Few World Cups.
We're playing 2 in 2 years.
T20 World Cups.
But the point remains that he's now at that stage of his career where he truly is a veteran, so the latitude he will get won't be anywhere near as much as it might have been 5 years ago. So I put on the Guardian coverage that if Warner failed tonight in the chase and Australia were turned over chasing 154, it may have been his final game for Australia in this format of the game. I don't think that's an exaggeration. That I don't think they would have done it, but it's possible they might have. And the very fact that we're having that conversation around Warner shows how his position in the pecking order isn't quite as established as it once was, which for him, I reckon, is the perfect kind of incentive. Warner loves having the foot to the back of his head. He always has as a professional cricketer, and tonight he played accordingly. So he was superb, and mentioning Maxwell missing out, but for Sri Lanka, they needed everything to go right from that stage, and it rarely does when you're only defending 154, especially when it should have been up at 170 or 180 had they capitalised on their great start.
Well, it looked like a surface it was a bit easier to bat on, even though Zampa did get that amount of purchase out of it. The thing that stood out for me from Warner was that sort of back foot punch through the covers that he played late in his innings that split the fielder in the circle and the sweeper out at the boundary. Didn't have a lot of room to aim for, but that was a really good piece of timing. So he had been bludgeoning those pull shots away on the leg side, but then hit the offside as well. He hasn't had a lot of cricket for Australia. He's obviously had that ropey IPL and got dropped by his IPL team, and that doesn't make you sit highly in anyone's estimation, but he's also, without any doubt, Australia's most successful and prolific T20 international bat. He's just been the standard for well over a decade for Australia in that format. So, I'm sure there would have been some drop in mutters, and there probably will be any time he strings a couple of low scores together from now on. And there's also a bit of preemptive Ashes nervousness around from various people who are like, what if Stuart Broad does it again? What if it happens again? Ooh, Stuart Broad, he's coming. Ooh, Stuart Broad. But in a situation where Australia's barely played any international cricket in the last 2 years, there's not a lot of form to go on, and all you can really go on is what you know of the ability of these players, and what Warner's done in the format is matched by nobody for Australia. So I think it had to happen. He had to make some runs. Whether that turns into another score, whether he should have been out for a lower score and what would have happened, who knows? But it'll roll on from here, and that, whether it was lucky or not, that might be enough to give him the little boost that he needs.
I quite like the heartfelt tribute to him by Shane Watson on commentary. In fact, that might be where we pivot to the Hall of Fame, thanks to Woodstock Cricket. woodstockcricket.co.uk. Get your discount on the best cricket bats in the world, the best service in the world as well. Personalised service. It's not like some bat you pick up off the shelf. You go in there, they talk to you, they work through what's going to suit your game, and then they make sure you go away with an affordable, outstanding piece of kit. woodstockcricket.co.uk. The offer code with the final word is TFW20. That's all in the show notes. Get yourself a new cricket bat, woodstockcricket.co.uk. Watto's tribute to David Warner, saying that he'd been spat out by the Sunrisers of Hyderabad. Now, I think Shane Watson is doing a really good job on commentary. I think he's really taken to it. He's passionate, he's well prepared, he's articulate. That might have been a bit career limiting, though, describing an IPL franchise as spitting out a player if he wants to work in India in the future. That might raise a few eyebrows, but I think that he's been fabulous. Another piece of commentary I enjoyed tonight, though, Jeff, which is my primary nomination, is when Dale Steyn gave us an insight to his relationship with Adam Zampa. He said that he and Adam Zampa are close pals. They played in the Big Bash together for Melbourne Stars for a couple of years and all the rest of it. And Adam Zampa tried to get Stain into a property deal with him for a farm up in Byron Bay. Now, as Jared Kimber put on Twitter, imagine a Netflix documentary or an Amazon maybe not documentary. That'd be the augmented reality, perhaps, of Dale Steyn and Adam Zampa enjoying their days on a farm in Byron Bay. I'd hit subscribe, make no mistake. So I want to know more about the Dale Steyn Adam Zampa friendship through the course of this tournament.
What are they growing up in Byron Bay? Is it Narcos season 4 starring Adam Zampa?
My first thought was, how great would it be to get blazed with Dale Steyn at Adam Zampa's farm in Byron Bay? I mean, where can we sign up for that holiday when we have our non-existent annual leave? I'd love to get up and hang out with those two. But you know,
Russell Crowe pops over from his farm just down the road. I mean, Dale Steyn, he did have the Panama hat going in the com box today, some sort of white straw hat option.
Tony Greig style.
At night in the UAE. I mean, this is an interesting move.
Oh, there's a lot going on. He's got the ponytail. He's got the Tony Greig hat on top. In fact, while we're talking commentary, Mark Nicholas's impression of Tony Greig, which I reckon is the best going around. Mark Nicholas is having a blinder. When he and Watto were commentating when Asalanka was in, my only comment was, just let these two guys keep commentating until he gets out. They were so emotionally invested in Asalanka's contribution. I didn't want them to make way on commentary. But yeah, so great to have Nico back at the peak of his powers as well.
It was like the end of Milo and Otis. You didn't want it to be over.
Yes, that's right.
But yeah, anybody wearing a broad-brimmed hat indoors at night while doing cricket comms is making some interesting choices. I think Hall of Fame, I have to go on the field today.
Okay.
Bhanuka Rajapaksa, the two shots that he played that have to get in there. One was the sweep shot when he started falling over. His front leg went out from underneath him and he skidded into it. It was from Stoinis, I think, so it was medium pace as well. He slid into the line of the ball and then still swept it from about a foot and a half outside off stump behind square leg for 4. And then he had the one against Stark, was it, where he backed away about 2 metres outside his leg stump, got followed and still managed to play an inside-out, not a cover drive, but like an inside-out checked defensive shot that split the gap for 4. I mean, the timing to go through the offside along the ground from on the move that far outside his leg stump. Absolutely extraordinary piece of batting, and they didn't even show a replay of it because they were showing the replay of Pat Cummins trying to move the boundary rope when he tried to block the ball back, swept it up into his own face. It rolled along the boundary, and what he was actually doing was punching the rope in frustration, but it looked like he was trying to shift the rope a bit further out so that he could stop the ball hitting the rope, which, ingenious if so. What does the laws say about that?
Well, Declan Lawler, one of our patrons, nominated it as the Hall of Fame moment. My immediate thought, Jeff, and this will be quite narrowcast to our footy fans in Melbourne, it was like Stewie Lowe when he shook the goalpost in order to try and make the goals smaller in the 90s. Like, he got suspended for a week for that. That first shot that you mentioned for Rajapaksa, when he went down, that's the sort of ball you can tear your hamstring from. It almost looked like he was about to go into Trikonasana pose, like triangle pose. He's been doing his yoga clearly, which is why he was able to maintain his balance on his front heel when making contact with that ball. And the second shot, I agree. I reckon that was shot of the night. He pretty much defended it, but bisected the gap. He's a player who we're going to keep a close eye on. I reckon he might become a bit of a final word favourite in the years to come. Jeff, we've done the final word. We've done the game. All that's left is previewing what's going to happen on day 7.
Oh, day 7. Well, the big one. It's the Waziristan derby. It's Afghanistan versus Pakistan. They're going head to head, both running hot in their group, and then the battle of the teams who are trying desperately not to be knocked out, but may already have been knocked out. West Indies and Bangladesh. You know what they say about games like that? It's must win. Apparently, unlike all of the other games that teams play at World Cups, which are voluntary.
All right, it's been day 6 of the T20 World Cup Final Word Daily. Adam Collins and Jeff Lemon. If you like what we do, you can support us. You can listen to all of our podcasts. We make a lot of them. Or you can jump on Patreon, patreon.com/The Final Word, and make a financial contribution. Be involved in our Nerd Pledge quiz. It also means you can join the conversation day in, day out on Discord, where it is always popping off. That's it for us tonight. Australia comfortable winners by 7 wickets.